In July 2012, oh my God, that feels so long ago. 10.5 years ago, in July 2012, after losing the league to City on goal difference in the dying seconds, Manchester United dipped into the market and bought Robin Van Persie. Van Persie had just scored 30 league goals in 38 games for Arsenal, won himself PFA Player of the Year. Fergie wanted more goals. He basically just signed goals. After United signed him, Van Persie scored 26 goals in the league and in doing so delivered our 20th and currently final title. And at the end of that season, Sir Alex Ferguson retired. I think it's safe to say that since Sir Alex Ferguson left, we haven't really had an attacking signing that has worked out anywhere near as well as that one did. Sir Alex signed countless top strikers, and a lot of them served the club for a long time and served the club fantastically. From Cantona to Rooney to Ruud van Nistelrooy, Andy Cole. We spent a lot of money on strikers, Dwight York, and it largely worked out for us. But despite signing plenty of strikers in the 10 years since Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement, we haven't had a single striker who's impacted anything like, let alone a Cantona or a Rooney, not even as much as a Dwight York or an Andy Cole or even a Solskjaer, let alone Ruud. United right now have to bring in a striker. It is mission critical that United find a striker and bring a striker in. And I think it's very much a case of finding the right one and not making the mistakes that we've made time and time again in the last decade. And I'm recording this now as United have been linked with a 36-year-old Olivier Giroud on loan. Let's have a look at some of the post-Fergie signings. After the sacking of Moyes, Louis van Gaal got United fans excited, myself especially, when he signed Radamel Falcao on loan on deadline day in 2014. At the time, United fans were absolutely buzzing. I didn't wear pants for about 3 weeks. Falcao was a serious player. New manager described him as one of the most prolific strikers in the game. He'd scored 70 goals in 91 appearances for Atletico Madrid. But it didn't work out, and we didn't scratch below the surface. The guy hadn't played a hell of a lot and was dealing with a knee injury in the months that preceded the transfer. And he flopped at United. He stayed for only one season. He got 4 goals, 5 assists in 29 appearances. Certainly not the 70 and 91 sort of ratio we was used to seeing from him at Atletico Madrid. Why? Well, there's plenty of factors. Culture is one word that we've consistently heard. The manager, the culture. At the time, I want to call this the Woodward era. And I think United were chasing the big signings rather than the right signings. And sometimes it is signing someone that doesn't really make a lot of sense, like a Christian Eriksen on a free. That turns out to be the signing that really transforms everything that you're trying to do. United rushed to sign Falcao after finding out he was available, and they made a deadline day decision. In doing so, didn't really consider whether or not he was the right signing. And United have done this again, time and time again since. Ronaldo was rushed. Ronaldo was concluded in about 7 or 8 hours. The nostalgia and the romance took over the fact that we wanted to sign him. Realistically, the signing of Ronaldo pissed off Cavani and saw him leave. And even though Ronaldo did manage to bring in 24 goals in a shite United team, look at what's happened since. Alexis Sanchez was another opportunistic signing. We signed him to stop him going to Manchester City. He was at United for 2 seasons and scored 5 goals in 45 games. This is following, I think he scored 30 for Arsenal the previous season. Martial was another rush signing on deadline day 2015. And you'll never forget the debut goal. I nearly passed out, actually. The debut goal he scored against the Scousers, but his career has been completely mixed since signing in 2015. He's got 84 goals, 52 assists in 278 appearances. Not quite the stellar sort of name, like some of the rest of the names on this list. He's been a decent servant, but he's never really been able to nail down that place, and certainly hasn't hit the potential that we thought he could do. Another rush signing, arguably not well thought out, and certainly not looked after when he was here, was Cavani. Another stopgap signing who did well in his first season and was pretty much forced out of the club because Ronaldo needed to get minutes and was never going to work long term for us. Gaal, similar. We signed him because we needed anything. Literally a stopgap till we got a long-term striker, which we never did. And then we've had the mega money signings. Romelu Lukaku. Despite most of the strikers that we've signed in this time being stopgap strikers and all short-term, there was one that seemed a hell of a lot more sensible. We invested 75 million into Romelu Lukaku in 2017. And he just had an excellent season with Everton. In 16-17, he scored 26 goals, all competitions. And he really felt like he could be the man Mourinho could get the best out of. And he had a good start. Got 27 goals in his first season, all comps. And even though he wasn't the prettiest on the eye, he had a bit of a touch on him, he knew where the net was. The problem is people started to try and treat him like a Drogba that could hold the ball up when actually he was more of a Michael Owen, just massive. His passing, at times his finishing, it didn't really matter because he knew where the net was. The next season it went to shit in a big way. There's some talk that he put on weight for the World Cup, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. And that was something that he sort of criticised United for. I don't know why United would want him to put weight on for the World Cup. But he lost a lot of timber when he first got to Italy with Inter. But it went to rat shit for him in his second season. The wheels came off for Mourinho. The wheels came off for Lukaku. His goal tally halved. And the weaknesses in ability were amplified. Lukaku quickly found out that he wasn't the guy, and we sold him at a loss to Inter come the end of the season. Lukaku was in his prime, and the numbers were good. And it didn't work out for whatever reason. It didn't work out. But that's the sort of signing that United need to try and make again. But successfully this time. In terms of the successes that we've had, Marcus Rashford scored a lot of goals in the post-Ferguson era. Not a striker, though. Played there a few times, but not a striker. He also wasn't signed. He came through the academy. Mason Greenwood looked nailed on to be an unmitigated success until off-the-field issues have caught up with him. And right now, I think you could be looking at a career that could be over with those allegations and how long he's going to have been on bail by the time his hearing happens. Zlatan is arguably the only positive signing that we made in the striker department post-Ferguson, but there's still question marks. He was free. He scored 28 in 46 games. He helped us win a League Cup and Europa League. And we only really got one season out of him. Lukaku's arrival meant he only played 7 times, on the back of an injury as well, in his second season. But he was signed as a striker. I think he was 35 when he joined us. He was never going to be the long-term solution. So why have United been so bad at signing strikers? Short answer is ultimately the Glazers and the hierarchy that they put in place. The lack of a director of football, the lack of a proper scouting system, the lack of doing due diligence on our signings. United have been so poorly run until recently. And I could argue even that despite the success of some of Ten Hag's signings, they're clearly his signings. Anthony was clearly his signing. Christian Eriksen had trained at Ajax prior to signing. Clearly his signing. Lisandro Martinez was literally his centre-half. Clearly his signing. The only one that we don't know for sure that he had the phone number of was Casemiro, but it's Casemiro. In the last 10 years, United have really gone for the big signings rather than the sensible signings, and we've continually tried to paper over cracks with quick fixes which either not worked at all or maybe only worked temporarily. And even when it seems like we've made a signing that is meant to be long-term, like Lukaku, it's failed for whatever reason. And ultimately, I think it would be remiss to blame the club entirely in this one with Lukaku, as Lukaku has since gone to Inter, been largely successful, got a massive money move to Chelsea, and absolutely shit the bed again. And now he's gone to Inter, and it just seems to be fucking moaning all the time. The only successful players that have come have really been through the academy, really, apart from very, very recently. Under Herrera, maybe. The failures are vast compared to the successes, which have been minimal. Ed Woodward has gone. The Glazers might be on their way too. If United finally get together a hierarchy that can identify and deliver signings, we could be lethal. Things have to change behind the scenes, and then they will change in terms of who we bring in. I think we've got the perfect gaffer. I think if he ends up getting like oil money sort of finances, he will be a resounding success. We finally got the man that could lead us back to the promised land. There's a lot of talk that the hierarchy has changed, although we haven't necessarily seen the evidence of that. We've started to get our shit together in the transfer market, seemingly with the successes we've had this season. We need a number 9. And ideally a number 9 that's going to take us back to winning the Premier League and do it on a long-term basis. Let me know who in the comments. See you in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.